One of the most pervasive stereotypes about Black Americans is that of the absent Black father.
The absent Black father myth is the idea, the stereotypical and incorrect notion that African American fathers have very little contact with their children, if any contact at all.
And in Black America, the reality of being fatherless is perhaps most painful.
73% of all Black babies are born out of wedlock.
Experts say there's a crisis when it comes to Black fathers in this country.
The news media loves asking where all the Black fathers are, and that whole idea has been linked to everything from poverty and crime to even police violence against Black communities.
Why are these police shootings occurring? Well, it's because there is an absent Black father, or it's because Black families are on welfare.
But this idea that Black fathers aren't present in their kids' lives is actually false. Because the trope of the absent Black father is so pervasive doesn't mean it's true. Now, yes, according to a Centers for Disease Control report, in 2013, 72% of non-Hispanic Black women who gave birth were unmarried. But being an unmarried mother doesn't automatically mean that the father isn't involved. And in fact, that's exactly what that CDC report found. When compared to white or Hispanic fathers, Black fathers were actually more likely to be involved in their children's lives in almost every way. They were even more likely to have bathed, diapered, or dressed their kids, eaten a meal with them, played with them, helped them with homework, and taken them to and from activities. And a lot of that held true even when Black fathers didn't live with their children. But if we go solely off of what we see in the news media...
Where's your dad?
Don't really know.
Tell me about that.
He's just not around.
You wouldn't really see Black fathers in that way. Communications professor Travis Dixon studies the prevalence of stereotypes in mass media and the impact of these stereotypes on audiences. He wrote this report, A Dangerous Distortion of Our Families, and in it he found that almost all news and opinion media implicitly or explicitly encourages pretty egregious assumptions about Black fathers. Black fathers were shown spending time with their kids only half as often as white fathers, contrary to, well, the actual facts.
We found that Black mothers, white fathers interacted with their kids about 26% of the time in these videos and photos that occurred in the news media. Half as often, we found that happening for Black fathers. Only about 14% of the time were Black fathers actually interacting with their kids on camera in photos.
Dixon also found that news commentary singled out Black fathers 60% of the time compared to white fathers only 20% of the time. Well, one theory takes it back to a 1965 report titled The Negro Family, The Case for National Action. The report became one of the most contentious political documents in 20th century America. Democrat and Assistant Secretary of Labor Daniel Patrick Moynihan put the report together to make the argument for how the Lyndon B. Johnson administration had to do more for racial equality than simply pass the Voting Rights Act. Moynihan argued that to really fight racial inequality, the government had to understand the state of Black communities and why they were the way they were. But Moynihan ended up focusing on one thing, the Black family. According to him, the fundamental reason for growing economic inequality between white and Black Americans was a crumbling family structure in Black communities. And at the foundation of the so-called crumbling Black family structure was the absent Black father. Moynihan looked at non-marital birth rates and rates of fathers living separately from their children and made a whole bunch of assumptions about parents' relationship statuses and parental involvement. The report didn't take into account factors like the legacy of slavery, generational wealth, or even economic migration in which men left their homes so that they could provide for their families. The Moynihan report ultimately created three camps: the liberal camp, which saw the report as a foundation for policy change; the conservative camp, which saw the report as a justification for the argument that Black communities were responsible for their own issues; and then the left-wing camp that saw the report as blaming the victim, ignoring structural racism, and actually reinforcing racism. So what happens when people are exposed to these stereotypes about Black families? Aside from the reinforcement of the idea that Black communities have no one to blame but themselves, there's the everyday real-life impact these stereotypes have through policies and support for those policies. First, there's an almost total willful ignorance about the impact of slavery and modern-day incarceration on Black American families. Foundationally, slavery ripped apart Black families, and mass incarceration has put 1 in 12 Black men between the ages of 25 and 54 in prison. So we focused on the way the news media talks about black families and black fathers, but there's no shortage of the same representation in entertainment. Take, for example, one of our favorite scenes of all time from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. So let us know in the comments below what you guys think, where else you've encountered this trope, and tune in next week when we come at you with another great video.